How's it going, guys? My name is Dave, and you may or may not know that I am the social media pastor at North Point Church here in Atlanta, which means I often get asked about how churches can crush it on social media. So here's a talk I did at a recent conference covering why I think churches should be on social media and also providing some practical tips that you can use today to improve your church's social media presence. I really hope this video is helpful for you. If it is, make sure you share it on social media. Give me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Or if you've got any questions about church social media, make sure you leave me a comment. Enjoy.
Well, hey everyone, as Reggie said, my name is Dave and I get to be a pastor on staff at North Point here in Atlanta. And specifically, I get to oversee social media and to connect with all the people who engage with our church in digital environments. Now, to explain a little bit about what that means, every month at North Point, we get about 900,000 people who download our podcast. We get about 150,000 people who watch our messages on demand through our apps or through our websites, and we get about 90,000 people who watch our services online during our live stream. Now, if we added up all of the people who follow us on our 6 Atlanta area churches on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, we would have about 1 million followers. And on top of that, we also have about 600 hours of content viewed on our YouTube channels every week. Now, if all of that seems overwhelming, it's because it is. I remember after my first week on the job, I came home and my wife Meg said to me, "Hey, how are you enjoying your new position?" And I said to her, "I absolutely love it, but I kind of feel like a mosquito in a nudist colony. I know exactly what I need to do, I just don't know where to start." And she said to me, "Don't ever share that in public." And I said, "Why would I?" But it's true, right? I speak to so many youth pastors and ministry leaders who understand the importance of having a social media strategy, but they just don't know where to start. I mean, it's a powerful thing, but it's also an overwhelming thing. I mean, I work in church social media, but even I get overwhelmed with the idea of commenting, posting, retweeting, tweeting, sharing all this content on a regular basis. And so social media can often become this extra problem that we have to deal with each week in ministry. So if I could encourage you with one thing today, it would be this: don't be pushed around by your problems, be led by your dreams. And if your dream is to lead the next generation into a growing relationship with Jesus, then using social media well will make you more efficient and more effective. And that's because students aren't just influenced by social media. Students are making major life discoveries and major life decisions on social media. Social media is where they learn about society, it's where they learn about sexuality, and it's where they learn about spirituality. I have 3 teenage daughters at home, so I know firsthand how much impact social media can have because they're all on it. And just to prove that point, at the start of 2018, more than 80% of students use Instagram, Snapchat, or Facebook daily. That's right, Facebook. It's still up in the top tier. Also, on top of that, 65% of teens use Twitter every day, and 4.2 billion photos are liked on Instagram every day. Now, if that wasn't enough, we also know that 67% of teens believe they can learn anything they need to know about life from YouTube. And then over 4 million videos are viewed on YouTube every single minute. And let's be honest, a lot of the content that is out there is not really that good, right? I mean, at this moment, 28,000 people are watching porn online or on social media every second. This year alone, the online porn industry will make more money than Google, Apple, Amazon, and Netflix combined. The truth is, there is just a lot of crap online, which is why we need churches that are absolutely crushing it on social media, because we are called to be salt in the world, right? In Luke 14, Jesus says, salt is good, but if it loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? And then he goes on, it is fit neither for the soil nor for the manure pile. It is thrown out. Now, what is Jesus talking about? If salt is not fit for the manure pile, does that mean that there's a time when salt is fit for a manure pile? Well, to explain this, I've got with me a plate of dried manure, which I got through Amazon Prime. So this is literally an example of some of the crap you can get online. Now, in the first century, people used to cook in clay ovens. And because they lived on the edge of a desert, they didn't really have a lot of wood around to fuel the fire. So they actually started using dried animal manure to fuel their fires. And what they learned over the generations was if they took some salt and they mixed it with the manure, there was a chemical reaction that happened that caused the fire to burn hotter and brighter for longer. But see, over time, this process caused the salt to break down and it lost its saltiness and it was no longer fit for a manure pile. So what Jesus is saying here is that as Christians, we are supposed to mix with the manure of the world to cause God's word to burn hotter and brighter for longer. Amen? That is why, as churches, we need to be strategic in how we leverage social media. We have to leverage the technology of our day in the same way that the Apostle Paul did. Now, the technology in Paul's day was letter writing. All of you who are under the age of 30, letter writing is when you take a pen and you press it onto paper and you move your wrist around in order to create words. Right? Paul used the technology of his day in order to connect people with God. And the technology of our day is social media. And we need to leverage it in the same way that Paul did. We need to use social media to connect people with God. See, when we learn how to put a social media strategy together, it helps us to leverage community. It helps us to engage and connect with parents and students. And here's the interesting thing. When you do this well in your church, what you'll find is you actually will help people connect with your church before they connect within your church. You help people connect with your church before they connect within your church. And for the students and families who are already part of your church, your ministry, or your program, when you're leveraging social media to create engagement and connection, it can make a huge difference. And it makes a difference because we get to connect with people for 1 hour every week on Sunday, but we can stay connected for the other 167 hours of the week on social media. So the question is, how do we do this? How do we come up with a social media strategy that connects with parents and engages students? Well, the honest answer is it is a long and ongoing process. But in the next few minutes, I just want to give you 3 really simple tips that you can use to kickstart your social media strategy today. 3 simple things that you could use that may improve your church or your ministry social media today. And the first one is this. Focus on photos. Focus on photos. I don't know if you're aware of this, but students are visual creatures. This is proven by the stats that show that posts with images get 65 to 110% more engagement than text-only posts. And that's because images are the language of the 21st century. I love the way that author Shane Hipps puts it. He says this: words are brain protein, images are brain candy. And we saw a great example of this just this past weekend, right? At the Super Bowl. Remember when Justin Timberlake, during his halftime performance, jumped up into the crowd? And while he was in there, 13-year-old Ryan McKenna, instead of accepting the fact that Justin Timberlake is standing right beside you, he was getting his phone ready for a selfie. Instead of being in this incredible moment, let's see the next slide. Instead of being in this incredible moment, he had to stop and selfie it. He had to stop and take a photo that looked like this. And the lesson from that is clear, that we need to post images on social media, but we also have to use them strategically. Every church wants to post that Christian glamour photo of one hand up in worship with the stage, you all know, with the stage lighting behind, and it's all blurry, and it's that one hand up, and then we post something that says, hands up if you had a great time at youth ministry this week. But we have to start thinking beyond that. What if you took photos of your students gathering in the hallways and then asked them to tag themselves in that photo? What if you took photos of teenagers wearing your ministry swag? What if you posted images of your small groups in action? Or what if you posted photos of the baptism that happened at your church? See, we need to start thinking like this, because the modern reality is that social media is the new front door of your church. So you have to start shooting and posting the things that you want to show off. My second point is this, the second tip is this: repurpose on purpose. Churches are content creating machines. I mean, every week we are generating messages, we're generating worship services, we're creating small group resources and discussion questions. So take advantage of that. And one of the easiest ways to take advantage of that is on YouTube. Now, I don't know if you know this, but YouTube is the second biggest search engine in the world. And you may not know this, that 46,000 years of content are watched on YouTube annually. And just to underline the point, 91% of 13 to 17-year-olds in the US use YouTube daily. So how can we start to leverage that sort of thing? Well, you know that message that you spent 20 hours writing? Why don't you post that on social media in its entirety? Or even better, why don't you edit it down to a 2-minute micro message and post that on YouTube as well? Or how about that baptism video you showed? Why don't you post that onto social media, or post that onto YouTube, and then post links to your YouTube channel and every other social media account that you have? Or you know that story that you told during your message about that amazing kid who overcame that crazy circumstance? Why don't you interview him during the week and place that interview up on YouTube? Or you know how you're creating bottom lines and slides for all of your messages? How about turning those into graphics and posting those on social media as well? The point is, when you repurpose on purpose, not only do you have ready-made social media content, but you ensure that what happens on Sunday continues throughout the rest of the week. Like I said earlier, we get to connect with people for 1 hour every Sunday, but we can stay connected for the other 167 hours of the week on social media. And my third and final tip is this: invite people into conversations, not events. Invite people into conversations, not events. I see so many church social media feeds that are filled with invites and promotions to events and services and giving campaigns and camps and youth group activities. But we need to, as the church, we need to stop posting one-way information and start inviting people into two-way conversations. And the only way that that happens is when we start to use social media to invite people into conversations, not events. You know, at North Point, whenever we do a baptism, we get the person to do a 2-minute testimonial video. And these stories are of people, they're heart-wrenching, they're heartwarming, they're so inspiring and encouraging as people share about the relationships and the conversations that have transformed their lives. But the ones that I like the most are when somebody sits in front of a camera and says, wow, those church announcements were so powerful that day, I couldn't help but turn my life around. Said nobody ever, right? Nobody ever says that. But still, I see so many church feeds that are filled with announcements and invites to events. If you want to leverage social media to engage with students and connect with parents, then you just need to remember this simple formula. Question marks are greater than periods. Question marks are greater than periods. And here's the great thing. A period will end a statement, but a question mark invites somebody into a conversation. And the question that you post doesn't even have to be about your ministry. In fact, one of the most engaging posts we ever did on North Point was this one. And we simply asked people to tell us in a comment what their preferred coffee color is. Now, the average post on an organizational page, according to YouTube, gets 10.71% reach. That means that 10% of the people on that who follow that page get to see any given post. This post got over 120% reach, and it got hundreds and hundreds of comments, and here's how we used it strategically. The next post, the follow-up post that had a link to a previous message, that picked up on the momentum that was caused in the Facebook algorithm, and it got above average reach as well. So, my 3 strategies are this, real quick. Focus on photos, repurpose on purpose, invite people into conversations, not into events. Now, if your church is just on social media, you might think that you're really high tech, which is great. But if you can come up with and leverage a social media plan that allows you to connect with students, to engage with parents, then you move to being high tech and high touch. And really, that's the point, right? Thanks.